Hey, this is Jason Hill on the We Belong Here podcast. Today, I'm with Juliana Jimenez-Gonzalez. Today's topic is a personal story of rejection and failure turned into motivation. Juliana, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like a little kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
First podcast, so this is going to be so much fun. I love this.
It is always so fun. So
yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Juliana. I am 23 years old. I'm from Champaign, Illinois, so small town in the Midwest. Champaign is known for the University of Illinois. I feel like that's what most people know it for, the Big Ten school. But my family's from Colombia, Bogota, Colombia. So that's also a big part of my identity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I'm going to ask you what I've been calling a timestamp question.
Okay.
And if you had to use one or two words to describe how you're feeling, we're here in the second week on a Monday of the fall 2023 semester at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. What would those one or two words be?
Ooh, I would say definitely grateful. Also excited for the year.
Mm-hmm.
We're just in the swing of things. Mm-hmm. We're starting this semester, and I was actually doing some reflection with some friends yesterday, and we're so exhausted from, our assignments and everything, but what a privilege is it to be exhausted from going to school here.
Yeah.
And just in itself, that's just, really great.
and with great people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with great people that you can have those conversations with and really allow you to reflect and just kind of help your peace. Because I know when it can be so hectic, you can, at least for me, I tend to sometimes want to just be alone and I have to do this, but when you have people where they're like, hey, did you eat today? Do you want to go grab coffee? Do you want to study together? Even when we were studying yesterday in the library, I was on my phone for 10 minutes and my friend was like, excuse me. And she took my phone from me and then she put it on the other side of the desk and she's like, time to work. And I was like, okay, I needed that. Thank you.
That's a true accountability buddy.
Yes, very accountable. Yes, you need people to hold you accountable also. I think that's really important.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And so today, you want to talk about some of your own educational journey.
Yes.
Tell us about it. What does that mean?
Oh, it's a long story. But
I'm here for it.
So my journey to Harvard, I guess you could say, or educational journey, I feel that has been very different as opposed to other people that I've encountered. I've encountered rejection from universities that typically are seen, I'm putting in quotation marks, easier to get into because, but yeah, I didn't have a, quote unquote, easy educational journey, but I really think that led me to where I am today. And that's why I want to talk about it. I want to put my story. This is actually the first time. A lot of my friends don't know this story, actually.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah,
I feel honored. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
I'm going to be
with us. Yeah.
Yes, everyone. I'm definitely going to be very vulnerable here, and even some of my closest friends. I don't even think my boyfriend knows.
Oh wow.
I was wait, do you know my story? Because I told him I was coming on this podcast, and he was like, I know, he was telling me some of it, and I was like, but do you know this? And he's like, no, you never told me. And I was like, well, give it a listen. We Belong Here podcast. So
yeah. And so you very early on just now made two distinctions. You said my journey to Harvard and my educational journey. What is there a difference there for you? And what does the story you're going to tell incorporate that, or how do you think of those things differently?
I definitely think of them differently because I never saw Harvard as an attainable thing for a person like me. And when I say a person like me, it's because I never really took school seriously. Growing up, my family, my parents always put a lot of emphasis on education. I remember my mom every day after kindergarten, we would go home, eat a snack, and then she would spend like 2 hours teaching me and my brother Spanish because she really wanted us to learn, her native language. And so I remember elementary school, I didn't understand a subject. Oh, do you need a tutor? Let's go, talk to your teacher. What tutor can she, suggest us with? So they always gave me that support. But I think when I started getting to kind of those teenage years, when you start to get to high school, you can lose sight of what's important. And I started prioritizing different things in my life that, I shouldn't have. And I lost sight of, I guess I kind of just saw education as you're going through the motions. First you go to, pre-K, then you go to kindergarten, then you go to elementary school. And it's just something I saw that was mandatory, forced. It's just something you have to do, like getting dressed in the morning, going grocery shopping. That's just something you do. So I didn't see high school as a tool at all. I just saw it as a place to see my friends, a place to hang out, to have fun. But I did not see it as, okay, this is important. This is what's going to kind of determine the next stage of my life. But yeah.
And thank you. And I want to backtrack a little bit because you mentioned your mother,
Yes.
who would take hours out of her day to teach you and your brother Spanish. And so that's to me sounds like, and I'm interpreting it as a important part of your journey. And so let's maybe start from the beginning and including that. What are things when you say your educational journey that you are referring to?
Yeah. So, well, to give a little background, my mom is in education. She has an early childhood nonprofit learning center. So early childhood is her alley, so she knew that how important it is to educate children. But I just remember early on, there's so many different ways to learn. And I remember my dad, we would be in a store and he's like, do you want this book? Do you want this book? Do you want, so there's so many different outlets. My brothers, to this day, I was still, hey, do you, can you help me with this assignment? Can you help me, proofread this? But for me, the educational journey, they was just really supported by my parents.
And so I'm queued up. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready to listen.
To get in details.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you are.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's a long story. Also, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not the best storyteller, which is funny because I'm on a podcast. But, sometimes when you're telling a story, you're like, oh, actually, this happened back then. And then, so I can kind of be all over the place, but that's why.
I'm here for it.
Okay. So I already, kind of said the beginning, how I just saw school as going through the motions, something you do, didn't see really high school as a tool. I didn't take it seriously. It wasn't that I was necessarily failing. And I think that's why I didn't catch the eye of, my teachers, because I wasn't getting D's or F's. I was getting maybe C's and B's. So it's kind of like you have the quote unquote good student, then you have that middle kind of just like barely making it. And then you have the student that's like, okay, we need to make sure they're doing okay. So I was kind of in like this middle weird limbo situation. But came around junior year when it was time to take the ACT. I took the ACT. I know some people take the SATs. But I hated standardized tests. It just made me so nervous. I remember, sitting in those big rooms and then you see people finish early and then you're not even close to finishing. And that would just really take a toll on me emotionally. And I did terrible my first few tests. Very, very terrible. And then my parents were like, well, it seems like every university you need this test to, consider applying. And so they offered to help me find an ACT tutor. So I did an ACT class, and that helped a little bit, but I still was just like, oh, why do I have to do this? You know?
Yep.
I wasn't happy with my score, and I don't know if it had to do with the not feeling comfortable with the standardized test or not really putting too much effort in it. Because outside of the class, I wouldn't really spend too much time studying when, you know, it's more important. And then maybe back then you don't think that it's that important. So that was junior year. Come around senior year, everyone's applying to universities. It's also senior year. So, you know, everyone wants to have a really, you know, happy, fun time. So you always hear like senioritis, and it's where you don't care about your grades anymore. But when it was time to apply, I remember I didn't really know where I wanted to go. But being from Champaign, since the university is 10 minutes away from my home, it's just kind of an automatic thing to apply there. That's just, everybody applies there. Even if you don't really want to go, people still kind of do it. And so I knew I wanted to be in a career that would help people personally. I never in a million years thought I would be in education. But I wanted to be a nurse. And for for U of I, you had to apply, I think, to like a science-related course or major first. And then you had to be accepted into the nursing program.
Got it.
Yeah, so they were like that. And then I think I applied, to University of Illinois, and then I applied to Illinois State, some random Florida Atlantic University.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, is it a random Florida school? I don't know. And then I think I only applied to those 3 schools. Honestly, I just never put. It was always like, oh, college is coming up, but I just always put it kind of in the back burner, you know? So time came when I was like, shit, like this is really real. And, you know, talking to my friends, they're like, oh, I applied this place. And I was like, oh, I did not, you know, I'm still like considering. So at that point, U of I was my number one choice. I really wanted to go there because I didn't see any other university as attainable. And I thought maybe because I was from Champaign, I had an advantage, which doesn't make sense, really. That doesn't help you. But in my mind, 17 years old, you know, you think about those different factors. Turns out I did not get in. I was rejected. And I remember feeling crushed. Absolutely. I felt like a failure. I felt like a loser. I was so embarrassed that I told my friends that I was deferred. And in the moment, I just lied because I was so embarrassed about it. And I remember crying, and I was like, I'm so stupid. I'm so dumb. How could this happen? Is it because I applied for biology? I should have done something easier. You know, I should just, and then switched my major. I shouldn't have done that. You know, and you start to think about all the things you could have done. And then Florida Atlantic, I think I was accepted, but for the spring semester. So that I was actually deferred. And then Illinois State, I think I was also rejected as well. So that brought a lot of anxieties because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And it kind of just, my dad went to Parkland College, which is the community college in Champaign. And so did one of my brothers, Daniel. And my dad always talks about amazing things about this college. You know, when he first came to America, he knew no English. And that's where he learned English, was through this program. And my brother also, you know, talked really good things about it. So I decided to attend the community college. And that was an experience in itself. Seeing all your friends at a big university, partying, being in fraternities and sororities, and then I'm in their dorms and I'm living at home with my parents. And that was something that was very difficult because, again, I was prioritizing, the social life. But I remember thinking, I was like, something needs to change. I was like, I'm not going to get out of here if I don't take this seriously. And I just remember thinking, I need to be able to provide for myself. I'm gonna need to have a job. And the way to land, in my mind, it was in a way to land a livable wage job was to get good grades. So that was my priority. So I went to Parkland undecided, and I did the gen ed classes, and I took a 101 psychology class and absolutely fell in love with it. My professor, Sarah Grimson, I still remember her. I love her. She's awesome. She just made me fall in love with the subject. And I remember having a conversation with her because she had mandatory office hours the first week of class. And she was like, well, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What are you here for? And I was just talking to her, and she suggested that I apply for the honors program, where you choose 2 or 3 classes and you have to have a project for the class. And that's how it comes to be honors. So I ended up applying. I was accepted, and then I chose her class to be in the honors program. Then we kind of, built a relationship, and she invited me to a psychology conference at the College of DuPage, which is in the suburbs of Chicago. So went there, fell in love with psychology again. Met a lot of different people, a lot of professors. It was so much fun. And then end the first semester, I had all A's with 3 honor classes, which is completely different. I never had a 4.0 in my life before that. So I was feeling really accomplished, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply to U of I again. Typically people do 2 years at community college, but I was like, I don't want to be here another year. So I'm just going to go for it. So I applied, got in for psychology. Woo, finally. I remember I was in Cancun actually when I got the acceptance letter, and I was like, yay. But so then I was Parkland, then I started U of I my sophomore year. I could tell my priorities were different, definitely. That year was okay. I think it was, it was difficult with everybody already kind of being used to this big university, and then being a transfer student can be difficult. But that was something in itself that I had to learn to navigate. Was it junior year? I think the pandemic started. Pandemic had a huge impact on my life. So I was, so I mentioned earlier that my mom founded a early childhood nonprofit center. She has ages 6 weeks to 12 years old there. And that center is in Rantoul, Illinois, which is about 30-minute drive from Champaign. And it is aimed towards low-income, at-risk youth children. Also children that their families are migrant families. So their families come to central Illinois to detassel the corn. So the population is also primarily Latino. I would say about like 85% are minorities. And I would work there during the summers, kind of as needed, but I never really thought of education as a career. I think because my mom was, if I was off from school in elementary school, I would go there. It was just something that was it wasn't new to me. It wasn't exciting to me. But when the pandemic rolled around, I was forced to move back home because they closed, the university. Well, I wanted to move back home. I had an apartment, but I'm the type of person that needs to be around people. I like to, socialize, whatnot. So I moved back home, and then my mom had to close the childcare. This was back when nobody knew how it spread. So it was very, very scary.
Yeah.
And then since our parents are essential workers, they are working at the factories. They are, detasseling the corn. They're doing these jobs that are essential for the economy. The government was like, we need childcare to open back up because we need these parents to go to work. So the center was granted an emergency license. And my mom was like, I need teachers. I need, people to come back. And a lot of teachers didn't want to because it's scary. We
absolutely.
didn't know. And I was like, I have the qualifications to be a teacher because all you need is an associate's and 6 hours in education. So literally 2 classes. And if you take human development and I know. It's very low of requirements. Thank you, Illinois. But I, gratefully, I'm very, young. I don't have any immune compromisations or anything like that. So I was like, I'm going to go in and support you. I remember the first few weeks, we only had like 10 children when usually we have around 180.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Big difference. Yeah. But little by little, it started getting better. And since they also closed the public schools, we had to have our school-age children there full time. So usually they're just there in the mornings from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. And then we take them to school. We pick them up in the afternoon around 3 p.m., give them snack, and then we close at 5:30. But since the public schools were closed, they were with us all day.
Got it.
And they had to do their class on Zoom. And so we kind of became their primary teachers overnight, if you will. So I was with these school agers, and I was their classroom teacher. So I did that for about, I would say, a year. Then I continued my classes. I got more classes in education. I was promoted to an administrative position. So I was promoted to an assistant director, and I did more of managing the staff, enrolling children, things like that. And I fell in love with it. I really, really enjoy education at the administrative level. And I'm the type of person that needs to see the whole picture. And I
can relate.
I don't get me wrong. I absolutely love my children, and I loved being in the classroom with them. But it was nice to kind of check in on all of the classrooms, and oversee all of the classrooms and make sure in that sense. So that's when I decided that, okay, this is for me. I can see myself doing something in early childhood, just more at the organizational or systematic level. And so then I decided to do my concentration in developmental psychology, which was the closest thing to education. I couldn't minor in education or like early childhood education. That wasn't a possibility. But after my graduation, I worked for 1 year as an assistant director at the nonprofit, and I learned so much. I was in meetings with the superintendent. I went to the public school board meetings. It was really insightful. But I knew that I didn't have academically enough knowledge to kind of, I needed more early childhood formal academic experience. Because I majored in developmental psychology, not early childhood. So that's when grad school came along, and I knew I wanted to apply. This was really scary. Very scary, especially with my experience applying to undergrad. So I remember making a list, and I was like, okay, I'm going to apply to 5 universities. And I was just trying to figure out, what programs, things like that. And then I had my 4 universities. And then I remember during dinner one day, my mom was like, what about Harvard? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And she's like, Harvard, they have an education program. I've heard about it. You know, it's really, really good. And I remember getting mad at her.
Oh, wow.
I was like, Mom, Harvard? You think I can go to Harvard? I was like, I did not create a nonprofit. I don't create a business.
Yeah.
I haven't published a research paper. I haven't, you know, I've worked 1 year out of school. I didn't have a 4.0
Right.
and my undergrad. I was not doing like the most as you would think of a Harvard student. And then she was like, Juliana, just try. She's like, you never know. And I was like, I can't ask my letters of recommendation for Harvard. I was like, that's so embarrassing. I can't do that. So the conversation kind of ended there. And then maybe like probably a month or a month and a half passed. And then I remember it was about a week before the Harvard application was due. And I had it in the back of my mind. But again, I was just like, there's no point in even applying.
Yeah.
I was like, there's just, why? I was like, why apply? There's just going to be an automatic no. And then my mom brought it up to me again. And she was like, hey, did you ever apply to Harvard? Did you ever send in your application? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, why not? I was like, I can't. I was like, why, if it's just going to be a no? And she's like, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? And she was like, please do this for me. Don't do this for yourself. If anything, do it for me. She's like, think about your mom. Everything that I've done for you, all the sacrifices. She pulled that card, okay? So I was like, really going to make me do this? And she's, just for me, Juliana, for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Sent in the application, asked for the letters of recommendation. I think I got those in like 2 days before the deadline.
Yeah.
So I was really cutting it close. And then after I was like, okay, it's fine. The worst they can say is no. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, my advisors, it's fine if they're thinking I'm going to go to Harvard. I just didn't want them to think that I was conceited, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just was weird about that. But yeah, it was really just a time of insecurity for that, waiting to hear back from the graduate schools. Then I remember I got my first acceptance from University of Texas at Austin. And even I didn't even think I was going to get into that one. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And then they just kept rolling around. And then I ended up getting accepted into all of the universities.
Oh, wow. Let's go. You stop. You do like cause a car accident.
I was debating on pulling over on the side of the road and checking it. But I was like, Juliana, let's just wait till we get home. It's fine. Let's just wait.
Yeah.
So drove home, felt like the longest drive ever.
What were you thinking this whole time?
I was just thinking like, it's a no. Like, why are we excited to open it? It's a no. It's a no. Get home. My mom's in the kitchen. She's like, hi. Go straight to my room. Don't tell her anything. Lock the door. Open up my laptop. And they make you do like all those logins. And I was like, I just want to open this alone. Yeah. Just in case. Yeah. And then there was a thought. I was like, should I record this? Like, just in case?
Did you?
No. I wish I did, but I didn't. Then you open it up, and the first thing you see is like that confetti. And I was like, I remember screaming, and I was like, what the? Yeah. And my mom was like, what? Are you okay? Are you okay? Like, she thought something was happening. And I was like, I got into Harvard. Yes. And she started crying immediately. Oh my gosh. She's like, oh, my phone. Yes. And then she started recording. And I remember I could not stop, like, I felt like I was living a dream in that moment. I was like, this is not real. You know what's so sad is for a week, I thought maybe they accidentally accepted me. Isn't that so sad? I thought, this is an admissions error. There's no way. And then my parents were like, Juliana, do you know how many people have to say yes to an applicant? There's no error for that. That, you know, it has to be reviewed multiple times. Yeah. And I was like, well, but what if, and they're like, just stop. So that was my insecurity coming. And then the imposter syndrome started to settle in closer to coming here. I remember being at the admitted student reception. They had one in Chicago, and I was so nervous to go to that. Of course, we don't know anybody, and it's, the first mixer or whatever. Everyone was way older than me and just seemed, we were talking, they're like, oh, I did this. And I'm like, I just graduated like a year ago, you know? And I remember asking alumni, I was like, did you ever have a little bit of imposter syndrome? Like, well, Hugsy is more of a community. People are more understanding. When you think of Harvard, I wouldn't say that Hugsy fits that like box, so that did make me feel a little bit better. But there was still a little bit of that creeping into foundations and when we first moved on campus. And I don't want to say that it's completely gone now, but I would say that it's definitely gotten better, and I would say that it is the Hugsy cohort. The people here are so amazing and really make you feel like you belong. And it's just amazing how we can validate each other's feelings. And that's something that I really appreciated, for sure.
Thank you for telling. It was, Wait. I think we have some hand claps there.
Yay! Thank you, audience.
So it was a lot for you, and how I think what I heard and what I was listening to, how you were processing and the meaning of things, and you said it a few times, like some insecurities and fear, and I was hearing some comparisons, and it's like even with imposter syndrome now, which I have talked to so many people, and a lot of people that I met have come in with a lot of imposter syndrome. And so, one, have you thanked your mom?
I have.
Okay.
Almost every day. Multiple times. I always tell people, listen to your moms, y'all. Yeah. Because they know what's best, really.
Yeah. And two, it just, do you know why she heard about Harvard? Do you know why she told you to apply?
I think it's because she always dreamed of one of her kids coming here. Especially because they're from Colombia and they migrated here. You always hear about the American dream and Harvard and, one can only dream, So I remember she's been telling me many times, oh, I always wish that I could come to these universities. But now that you're here, it feels like, she's like, I feel so validated and so amazing. I'm like, thank you.
Absolutely. And so you're a part of your story. You found something that you love. You found psychology, and you were able to apply it. And the world happened. COVID happened, and I'm curious, with your evolved understanding of yourself and like your ability to contribute to others, what did failure mean? How did failure evolve for you and your perspective of your potential?
Yeah. So back then, I definitely felt that failure made me a loser. It made me a nobody. That I wasn't possible of doing certain things because I had that failure. That it was always gonna have a mark on me, if that makes sense. But now I see it as an opportunity to go a different route, try different things. It sounds so cheesy to say, but I had to go to that place of failure to be where I am today. Or else I would have never valued education. I would have never valued exceeding and actually care about learning, not just trying to get an A, but actually caring about the material and learning, because those are two separate things, right?
Yeah.
Is, the outcome and, what's on the transcript.
Yeah.
And what you're actually learning in the classroom. But that was something extremely important to me. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
Honestly. I am thankful, actually, that I got rejected. I wouldn't have seen the value in it. So I think that was very necessary for my professional, academic, and just personal growth.
Absolutely. Will you go back to Illinois when you're done here, or do you have a big question mark of what's next?
Big question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about Illinois. It's difficult because I'm very close to my family. Of course, I'm sure you can, guess that by now. But I want to be near them. And I have one brother that's in Orlando, Florida, and then I have another brother that's in Austin, Texas, and then my parents are in Illinois. So I think after we're just going to hopefully reunite and combine. But I'm just very open, to see where life can take me for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
What, with your story in mind and with your successes, what message would you like to leave the We Belong Here podcast listeners and watchers with?
I would say give yourself a second chance and don't tell yourself no before other people do, if that makes sense.
It does.
Don't sell yourself short. I was telling myself no before I applied here without even trying. And just, reflect on yourself and realize maybe that wasn't failure. Maybe I just need to try a different route. Maybe let's just call it an opportunity instead of failure. I feel, failure has such a strong word. So just call it a different opportunity. Call it maybe what sounds better for you, but don't call it failure. I feel like that plays in. It's my psychology coming out.
Oh, I love it.
There you go.
I like to call it feedback.
Okay, yes, I like that.
We get feedback in different types of ways, and
yeah,
feedback is just feedback. It's you putting something and you getting something back. And so, that can be meaningful in many different ways. And if a door opening is the feedback that you have gotten, then that's just feedback.
Right.
It's the meaning we make behind it.
I like that. I'm going to use that now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so what is your favorite thing or place in the surrounding Cambridge, Boston area?
Okay, so before grad school, I never drank coffee.
Okay. How many cups of coffee have you had today?
Today, 0, but I had a nap. Okay. So it kind of canceled itself out. But I've been into trying coffee shops. I tried Harvard Square I feel like Pete's Coffee is basic, but it's not to me.
Oh, I love Pete's Coffee.
Good.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that in Champaign.
Oh, no, it's great.
It's really
basic.
good.
Okay,
basic. Good. I liked it. No, Starbucks, definitely.
Yeah,
okay.
Okay.
We don't
I thought
support
we were gonna
Starbucks
have a disagreement.
No. But I just like, little coffee shops.
Yeah.
I've also been really into ramen lately. And there's a ramen place. I should have looked up the name before this.
Is it on Mass Ave?
No, it's on Harvard Square. If you're going towards, I don't know directions.
No, it's all good.
But same with Waku Waku. It's really close to Hugsy. It's pretty good too.
That sounds very tasty.
It's open late night.
Oh well, my stomach is growling as we speak.
Yeah.
Last question. And you've kind of touched on this a bit, but I want to ask it a little bit more directly. What makes you feel like you belong here at the Harvard Graduate School of Education?
just the people that surround me. I know I probably already said that, but if I haven't found, I have made some close friends here, and I don't think if I have found that community, then I would not have felt so safe. Also, the professors and the way that classes are structured. You know, foundations, we learned about psychological safety, and maybe that's a little bit of, you know, professors playing into that for the classes. But I had an amazing equities foundation course. I was in language, and we had just very enriching discussions, and I was like, wow, I've never had discussions like these before.
Yeah.
And it was something that was just amazing. But yeah, I would say the professors and the people, it's the people that make the place, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I would agree. Juliana, thank you so much for joining us here on the We Belong Here podcast, sharing your story for the first time. It takes a lot of courage and vulnerability, and I feel honored that you did that with me and that you are wanting to share it out. I think you're in the right place, and we haven't interacted much, but I can tell that you have and you will continue to impact and touch people's lives.
Thank you so much. First podcast in the books. Woo!
This is Jason Hill on the We Belong Here podcast. If you would like to be on the show, please reach out. My email is jasonhill@gsc.harvard.edu. Looking forward to it.